Hello, my loves, and welcome back again. Thank you so much for joining me from wherever you are in time and space. I know for a lot of us, we've been feeling quite a big shift internally with ourselves and within the collective consciousness, definitely as we come up to the summer solstice tomorrow and the full moon on Saturday. Feeling this big shift and this big calling to find, I think, more balance in life, but not just any kind of balance, like the specific message that has been coming through for me and for a lot of people that I've been in connection and conversation with lately. The big theme here is that we really need to get better at receiving. This is your calling today, right here, right now, to start receiving and to start receiving more because you are meant to. You are meant to have all of the things that you desire but struggle to receive. And I know a lot of us struggle to receive because we have just gotten so comfortable kind of just living in our comfort zone and just existing in the realms within our minimum standards, right? And we've also been, very much programmed with these beliefs that to be abundant or to receive an abundance is somehow selfish, or that it's cocky, even that it's burdensome, that we're unworthy, that we don't deserve that much, that we're not that person, we're not that rich bitch person, right? And then we've also come to have these conditions and beliefs that say, that having abundance or even just joy, ease, flow, simplicity, prosperity, right, in any area of life, that it's just hard to come by or that we have to hustle and grind to earn it. Right? That the idea that even just to like find a really great place to work, to have a really good employer, like that's really hard to come by. That having good people in your life, that's hard to come by. That to have any kind of wealth, right? To have like physical health wealth, to have success wealth, to have financial wealth, that we believe that these things are not only hard to come by, but that we have to really hustle and grind and struggle to earn them. And even once we do, there's still that kind of, I think, undertone of, well, even once I achieve a certain level of that, I still have to continue hustling and working and stretching myself and just being exhausted all the time. Like that's unfortunately that, a really common condition that has just been ingrained across our society. And it's just really time. It's way past time, in fact, for us to nix that. It's super past time that we not only open ourselves to receiving, but that we really look at just the bare bones truth of how important and necessary it is that we receive, and that we receive more, and we receive more on all levels, right? So, to illustrate this, I actually made a reel that I posted on my TikTok last week, but I'll kind of explain it again. So giving and receiving is actually meant to be like a cycle. So think about like water running through a hose, but instead of the hose going just like straight from one end to the other, that the hose actually is connected in itself in like a circular, cyclical way, right? And so water does flow in from the top and it also flows in from the bottom. We'll have different sources of water coming in, but the water that comes in stays within that cycle. It keeps moving in a circle, right? And so the way that giving and receiving is that we have Creator who desires to bless other people through you, right? And so Creator gives you certain blessings. They are the water that flows through you, and you give those blessings, right? So then that water does flow through you and it goes around to the bottom part, right? And so then other people do receive those, and then Creator also desires to receive you, to gift you, to bless you through others. Wow, words today. Um, so then water comes up through that other end of the hose. Those blessings flow through from Creator, through those other people. They come back around and they're meant to flow through you. And all those blessings are meant to keep flowing in a cycle, right? And so, what happens when we have these conditions, these programs that tell us that we shouldn't receive for whatever reason, or that we shouldn't receive as much, is that we consciously or non-consciously manage to essentially pinch the hose. We pinch the hose somewhere in that half of the circle between other people and ourselves. And what happens when you pinch a hose? All the water starts to get backed up behind the pinch, and then no more water can continue flowing through the rest of it on the other side. So by pinching this, you are making your side of the hose run dry. You are running dry, right? And that's why a lot of times you find that when it comes to pursuing what makes you feel purposeful or passionful, you just feel exhausted. You maybe even feel confused. You feel completely disconnected oftentimes from yourself and from the things that you thought you were passionate about, from the things that brought you joy or that you thought brought you joy, right? And so you just kind of get stuck in this loop where you're not moving in the direction of your full potential, and you don't really feel like what you're trying to give is necessarily landing the way that you wanted it to land, right? And it's really just comes back to that, like, well, because the universe is trying to validate you, the universe wants to bless you, and you're just, for whatever program or condition that you have going on within you, you're pinching the hose and you're not allowing yourself to receive the blessings that are trying to circulate their way back to you, right? And the real irony in this is that you wanted to show up and give in the first place because you have a really big heart, right? You care so much and you love so much. But the action of giving is actually a very masculine energy that is rooted in passion. It's rooted in your fire center, which is your solar plexus. It's right in your belly, right? And oftentimes, that kind of passion and that action of giving that comes from passion, it comes with attachment. We don't just want to give, we need to give. Right? It comes with that kind of attachment of like, well, I have to do this and it has to work, right? And yet, like, what I find really interesting with a lot of people and the patterns that they have is that whether what you have to offer, whether it's love, physical gifts, time spent, I know for me, one of like the biggest manifestations of it was that I gave so much of my intention and my energy to the place where I used to work. I like every project, I was like, okay, this is what you need me to do. I'm all in. And I would give so much of my energy to it. And more often than not, my boss would come back around and be like, oh, yeah, it turns out I didn't really need that. And I would be like, and so I know that that for me was like a big example of how this cycle got started. But even in those instances where what we have to offer does land and it is received, somehow the message that we get back is often the same. And that message is, okay, now go keep working. Okay, now go keep trying. Go again, do it again. That was great, but you could be doing more. You can do it better. You always have more to give. Right? Somehow, whether it's received or not, we have this tendency to like receive that same message and to feel like then we have to keep going back to that masculine energy of like, well, then I gotta just do more. Then gotta just keep giving, or I gotta give differently, right? We gotta keep going back to this like action taking, even well past the time that like we're burnt out and exhausted, right? And the irony that I was getting to is that in that cycle, we do not actually go back to that initial place of love. What we wind up actually doing is we root down in fear. Fear that we will lose our current situation, that maybe we'll lose the job, we'll lose good standing with our boss or whoever it is, that we'll lose the friendship or the relationship, right? Like we are afraid to lose these things if we don't keep giving, if we don't keep trying, right? We also fear that maybe we were never good enough for that situation in the first place. We have this underlying belief in our sacral chakra, which sits right underneath the solar plexus, which is like, hey, actually you're kind of less than, right? And that feeling of being less than comes from that fear, which sits in the root chakra, the first chakra right underneath the sacral chakra, which is like that fear of unworthiness. Also, that lack, that idea that things are hard to come by or that we have to work hard to earn them, those are expressions of lack. Those are expressions of fear as well. And so while we're sitting in this cycle, we're never getting back to that initial place of love, because like what we're doing, so energetically, your root chakra is the element of earth, right? So what we what we're doing by continuing to try to give is like we're going back to that rooted place of fear, and it's like we're taking logs and we're just stacking them on the fire. We're just like, okay, well, that fire's got to burn bigger, it's got to burn brighter, I got to find more passion, I got to keep trying harder and harder, right? And so we keep just trying to gather up logs and put them on the fire, and what we don't realize that we're doing is that we're actually choking the fire, because fire doesn't just need wood to burn, it also needs air. And ironically, air is the element of the heart chakra, right? We don't just need like the basics. We don't just need the twigs and the wood and the spark, right? Like we also need air. Fire needs air to breathe and to burn brighter. It needs purpose. We don't just need passion and action, we need purpose, right? We need more of that feminine aspect of coming from that place of love and purpose, not just passion. So by not receiving, by just giving all the time and not receiving, we are actually only perpetuating those fear-based programs of unworthiness or lack that we sought to extinguish in the first place by giving. So let's take a deep breath and sit with that for a second. and and while we're doing that, I want you to be like, okay, well, now that we know, right? Because as you know, my whole thing is that you cannot heal what you do not fully or properly address, right? So if we want to break this cycle and come back to that place of love centered, purpose driven, intentional circulating, right? then then ponder for a minute how that circulation happens. And I find like this, whenever I look in nature, I always find so much inspiration for the way that we as humans are a microcosm, a direct reflection of the macrocosm that is nature, and the even bigger macrocosm that is the universe. So consider a moment a seed that gets planted in the ground, right? A seed gets planted in the ground outside somewhere where it's nice. The soil gives the seed its nutrients, so the seed sprouts, and it gives the soil its roots, right? It's a give and take, it's a giving and receiving. And then the rain and the clouds and the sun and the soil keep nourishing the seed for it to grow into a plant, and the plant flourishes. And the more it flourishes, because of the more that it receives the nourishment, the more fruit that it can bear, the bigger its leaves can get so that it can shelter other little critters, the more shade it can provide, the more soil structure it can provide with its bigger, broader root system, i.e., the more nourishment it can give back to its own ecosystem, right? So, in this cycle of giving and receiving, neither the seed nor the ecosystem is selfish, right? They're not egoic, right? Neither one is doing any of those things. So receiving is not those things either. Receiving is not selfish, it's not egoic or self absorbed, it's not conceited, and it's not snotty, right? And you are not receiving so that you can hoard your energy, right? Whether that's true love from a good relationship, whether that's money and finances, whether that's a really good job and good coworkers and a good boss and good company, right? Like whatever of that influx of energy that you desire to receive, you don't want it so that you can hoard it and stash it for yourself like dragon's gold. Like that's not what you're trying to do. And people that you may know who had become that way, truthfully were actually that way in the first place, right? People who have more fulfillment, more health, more success, more wealth, right? In any and every area of their life, they're not inherently greedier or holier than thou, like just because they have more. Some people were actually already living in a place of fear and lack and that deep-seated attachment, that really heavy masculine energy that's like, I need it, I have to have more, and they think that it's feeding their confidence and their power, right? These are the things that take that fire that should be burning kind of like a campfire in your solar plexus, and that's when it turns into like a forest fire that just burns down everything around it, right? This is why these people, when they're already living in that place and then they get more money, they get more success, right? These things are just energy. So when you just add energy, you just add fuel to whatever energy was already pre-existing. That's why it just gets worse. That's why those people who, become more financially wealthy and successful, they become greedy, they hoard their wealth, and they unfortunately use it as a sort of tool or like a weapon against people to manipulate them, or to make them feel small or insignificant or whatever it is, because they were already living in that place of feeling small themselves, right? People do what they do because of who they are, because of the way that they are naturally, right? And so the more energy that you give them, the more that the energies they already have just get bigger and expand and get projected outward even more profoundly and even farther, unfortunately, in some cases. Except that it's a really good thing for someone like you, because you are so loving and caring that you keep trying to give and circulate and like magically create more life and more energy for others, even when you know that you haven't had it for yourself for days, weeks, months, when you're not feeling good, when you're not 100%, right? You keep trying to give it anyway, because who you are is love. Who you are is purpose, right? That's the energy that you can project outward, and that you can project outward bigger and farther and with more resonance when you allow yourself to receive, when you allow more of the energy that you desire to flow into you so that it can flow through you. Right? This is how that cycle of giving and receiving works, and why it's so important to bring the balance of that feminine aspect of receiving into that masculine aspect of wanting to give. We have to have the balance of the two. And I think what happens a lot of time too, even though we can look at that and we can be like, oh yeah, that makes sense, is that we forget, or we don't know, because these things were not taught to us in school, right? But everything is energy, right? Like, I'm always talking about the different kinds of blessings we can have, right? We can have peace, we can have joy, we can have money, we can have love, we can have a great job, we can have passions and purpose, we can have physical health, right? We can have all of these different kinds of energy, and it's all energy. And you know what? So are you. You are also energy, which means that everything and everyone is all just energy. It's all on equal standing, it's all on the same playing field. right? So, this idea that you are here and your desires are there, that's an illusion. We have this illusion of separateness because we don't see how everything is interconnected because it doesn't look like that to our human eyes, right? And not only that, but when we take this illusion of separateness, this idea that we are somehow a separate type of energy from the energy of the things that we desire, and then we also we take that illusion of separateness and we add to it our own fears that make us think that we are less than, then we feel like we are now beneath the energy of our desires. In other words, we put our desires up on a pedestal. So not only are we separate in a linear way, we are separate in an up and down level sort of way, right? And so that illusion, that idea makes it seem in and of itself like our desires are so hard to receive and like we will have to work so hard to get them. And that's not true, right? Because everything is energy. It's all in equal standing, right? Think about that seed that we talked about earlier that that received the soil and the rain and the sun and the nourishment that it needed to grow into a beautiful plant, right? When its life is over, it it will have its little moment, I guess, of passing on, and it will decompose and it will become the soil again that gives rise to the next seed that's planted there. So actually, there is no difference between the plant and the soil. It's all interconnected, right? There's no life or death. It's all interconnected. It's all part of the same system. There's no giving or receiving. It's all part of the same system, right? That's how life force energy works. It's all part of the same circular system that is designed to do just that. It's designed to circulate. It's designed to go around and to keep doing what it needs to do so that it can nourish everything it comes into contact with, right? So, in that, we can find a place where we can neutralize the charge, the energetic charge that we have around receiving and around the type of energy that we want to receive, right? If we can get to that space of knowing and feeling and remembering, oh yeah, actually it's all just part of the same thing, then we can start to actively neutralize that charge because you now have the power to do two things, right? You now have the power to look inside of yourself and go, okay, what is the real reason that I want this? Right? So I know for me, when I first really got into like manifesting more business, more clients, more wealth for myself, I was like, okay, this this thing that I desire, and I had some of those programs as well, like, okay, I feel like I'm gonna have to work really hard, I'm gonna have to hustle and grind, I might have to work my full-time job and then work extra nights and weekends to make it happen. I was totally in that place of like thinking that that level of success for me, was coming from that place of lack. Like there's only so much of it to be had, and so I'm going to have to work really hard to grab my little piece of the pie, kind of, right? And and then when I started to work more on manifesting and really getting into my spiritual life and finding that place of oneness consciousness and all these beautiful things, then I was like, okay, wait a minute. Everything is actually energy. And manifestation is fueled by who I am and by the electromagnetic field that I create with the consistent feelings that I have about what I can create when I have that thing that I desire, right? So for me, it wasn't just that I wanted more clients or more money, it's that I wanted to make a bigger impact on the world. And when I think, oh, if I can make a bigger impact on the world, in this way by showing up for clients, right? And I can make more money doing that, then I can take that money and I can make a bigger impact in the world in even different ways, several ways, right? In my mind, I'm like, oh, I can totally, you know, have some projects that I don't want to talk about yet because I'm still manifesting them, but I have some projects that I would really love that will give back to the veterans community, right? Or projects that might help out like some less fortunate people in need. Um, Lots of different things, right? So, like, therefore, having success and um, more passion and more financial wealth to me is not only not something that's like way up on a pedestal and completely unattainable and not for me, it becomes something that is actually more of like a healing energy. It helps me to heal those old programs within myself, and it also helps other people to have a more healed, a more complete, and a more fulfilled life in the ways that Creator desires to channel those things through me. Right. And so I very much think about like, I don't know if you guys watch the show Hometown on HGTV with like Ben and Aaron Napier, but I am so inspired always by all of the different wonderful, beautiful things that they have created with their wealth and success. They have now opened, I don't know, multiple businesses with thousands of employees working for them in, all over the place. And they even like travel and go help other small towns, get themselves like kind of back up and running. They have their own little farm so they can be more self-sufficient, right? They use their wealth as a tool to heal entire communities, to heal entire towns, right? So that idea of receiving that you have been so charged about and thinking you were so unworthy of is not how you're meant to see that. It's not how you're meant to experience that. It's not the relationship that you're designed to have with that kind of wealth that you desire, right? It's super important that we really get super clear with ourselves about why it is that we truly want what we want and to sit in the feeling of having that. What does it feel like to be making that impact? What does it feel like to be sharing that healing energy all over the place? Right? And so you can neutralize the charge and then effectively actually reverse it into a much more positive electricity that will take up your electromagnetic field that is your aura and start to have an effect on the matter on the world around you that will start to communicate to the universe that you are ready to receive that you want to receive that, and that when you do, you are going to continue circulating that so that other people will also be so inspired by your ability to create with your receiving that they will then go ahead and do it as well, right? We just create this ripple effect with our ability to receive and then turning that into a higher level of giving that comes from a place of love and purpose as opposed to from that place of passion and attachment. I totally just I totally just did what I did a couple weeks ago. I started channeling and I went totally off of my notes there. But the last thing I did want to say about that in terms of your ability to have that and to create that is that the other really important thing that we need to focus on is bringing our heads out of a future that we have created based on a past that we've already experienced, right? So again, it's that place of fear that we start to assume what's going to happen in our future, right? We need to break away from all of that. And when you do start to focus more on the purpose at hand, on the love at hand, and on the feeling of having it and of creating what you're here to create with that wealth, with that receiving, you come back to that present moment. And the more you come back to that present moment, the more that you are connected to the quantum field, which is the field of infinite potentiality, right? If in the time space fabric we are humanly living somewhere, kind of, right? Then the past has already happened. There's no potential there, right? And we can't yet control or see the future. So there will be potential, but it's not here for us yet. The only potential that we have for ourselves and for our creative expression is in the here and now. And in quantum physics, because the here and now is that field of infinite potentiality, then there is the potential, there is the possibility, there does actually exist right now, not just the potential and the possibility, but there is a version of you that actually has everything that you desire to have right now. And so again, it's just a matter of connecting with that by feeling, by getting that clear vision, that clear heart set, that that clear feeling, that clear intention, and focusing on that and bringing that into as many of your present moments as you can to draw that possibility to you, to draw that result to you, right? And to really deepen into that love and to really deepen into that version of you and to help you reprogram what you know to be true about yourself to continue creating that, to continue receiving so that you can continue giving, so that hose never runs dry, so that you are always reminded about how much love you have and are, because it always cycles back to you. It always comes back to you in some shape or form. Maybe not exactly in the same way that you give it, but it always comes back in a way that validates, hey, what you have to give is not only meaningful to you, it's meaningful to the people who are receiving it also, right? That giving and receiving it just keeps going and going and going, right? So I hope that this was so helpful and so eye-opening and so heart-opening for you. Thank you again so much for joining me. If you loved it, please take a moment to subscribe, to share it, to comment. There's a link now in the show notes where you can send a text and I'll get it, which is super cool. It doesn't go straight to my phone. It goes to like the platform that I use to post my podcast on. And if you are ready to do some deeper soul work with me, collapse your timeline to really start to get your head and your heart and your soul aligned with each other, to do some of that deep, good soul work, that deep healing that's going to help you to create the launch pad for your manifestations to absolutely take off, then I would so love to work with you. And I absolutely invite you to click the Linktree link in the show notes to either send me an email or a DM, or you can go ahead right there through the link as well and apply to one of the 2 programs that I have available right now. If there is something, some kind of a service that you are curious about to work with me on that you don't see, does not necessarily mean that I don't offer it just because you don't see it. So in that case, again, I invite you to just send me an email and we can check it out and we can see if we can meet each other in the middle and find a good place for us both to fit. So thank you so much again for joining. I love you all so much and I hope you have the best day. Remember, you are meant for more. It's coded within you. Your wealth, your blessings, your native growth. Have a great day.